Elon, the Doge committee, whatever, they're talking about auditing Fort Knox right now. So the 8,100 metric tons of gold that we supposedly have may or may not be there, and we may or may not know. We may or may not verify in short order if that is true. So I guess how do we roll out that system that you're describing, and then what? Kind of give me the two different scenarios. If the gold's there, it looks like this. If the gold's not there, it looks like that.
Yeah. Well, so Besson said they wanted to roll out and have this thing set up within 12 months, the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So they're going to take a little bit of time with it to figure it out. I think the first step would be like a re-monetization of the gold. So, the gold was set in 1974, I believe was the last time it was revalued. It was either 73, February of 73, I believe, at $42.22 an ounce. And that was done by presidential proclamation executive order, just saying gold used to be, because Nixon had already raised it from 35 to like 40, I think, or something like that in 70 or something. Now he's raised it again to 42.22. So you would have the president come out and say gold's now worth $3,000 an ounce, let's say. And the way
he'll set the price, not marked. It won't float on the market rate. It'll just be a pegged price.
Yeah. So it gets into like different statutory laws.
Yeah.
So there's different laws involved in this. There's the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. There's actually goes all the way back to something called the AAA, or the Agricultural Adjustment Act from the 30s. And there's a specific component of that act called the Thomas Amendment. It was actually called the Inflation Amendment when it came out, which was what allowed FDR to inflate with repricing gold from $20 to $35.
Okay.
So that's where the presidential authority to revalue this gold comes from, this thing called the Thomas Amendment, which is part of the Farm Bill, or the Agricultural Adjustment Act, it's known as. So now that amendment actually limits the amount of revaluation that the president can do to like 100%. So if it's 42, it'd be like $84, right? So I don't know if he'd have to do like 6 executive orders, like from 84 to 168, and eventually get it to what he wanted, or if they throw it into a bill somewhere and say the president can revalue, gold to whatever amount or whatever he wants. But once it's revalued, it becomes a statutory amount.
But
and it has nothing to do with the mark. It doesn't have anything to do with the mark.
It just mark it to whatever he wants it to be.
Whatever it could be 10,000, 2,000, anything. And the way the Federal Reserve Bank's accounting manual is written, and it's in Section 210, it's a PDF on Google, anybody can find it, and Federal Reserve accounting manual. It says the Secretary of the Treasury has the right to monetize the nation's gold, like submit new gold certificates. And the Fed has to deliver to the Treasury the difference between the new valuation and the old valuation, and the Treasury puts it into the Treasury General account. And it's just it's money printing, and it's like monetary. It's gold QE. It's money printing by the executive branch instead of the Federal Reserve,
right?
Because theoretically, the only way the Federal Reserve could pay for this would be to print money, unless they went into the open market to sell Treasury bonds that they own. Now, what would Powell do if he's presented with this, essentially a demand for payment on the nation's gold revaluation? Would he sell bonds, or would he print the money? Besson has breakfast with Powell every week. He could clear that. If Powell doesn't want to print the money, Trump's going to be able to put in whoever he wants in May of next year. At that point in time, he could put someone in who he knows will print the money. And now what you're doing is you're having a power grab from the Fed. You're having the executive branch taking that monetary lever away, and then being able to basically print money on demand. Anytime they want to print money, they revalue the gold certificates. The framework's already in place, and they can stimulate the economy that way. So,
but the ceiling would be gold's market price, right?
No, it wouldn't. It would not need to be gold's market price.
Well, what I'm saying is, wouldn't that be a ceiling on the money printing though? Because then once you started printing it above, you revalued the gold certificates above gold's market price. Wouldn't arbitrageurs just wash that out somehow?
Well, no one can. The United States is not going to sell their gold.
Okay.
What it is this doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
What's so hilarious to me, by the way, in the back of my mind, is like, no wonder they won't let this thing be marked to market, right? It is still the most important asset in the world from a geopolitical standpoint, right? That's why they don't want it to be marked to market. They want its price controls on the most important asset in the world. So it's hilarious that we call ourselves free market capitalists in this country. We have price controls on the most important asset in the world. Right now, it's sitting on their balance sheets at $42 an ounce. It's trading at what in the market?
$2,900.
$2,900. There you go.
Man. And the thing is it's all because the accounting in the law, the way the statutes are written, it specifically states based on the statutory value of gold. The statutory value, based on what I mentioned before, the Thomas Amendment, is whatever the president says. And that doesn't mean that the government needs to go in there.
This is like the essence of fiat, right? It's like, ignore everything that's real. Whatever I say is real, basically.
Essence of true fiat, where money is, it literally is whatever whoever has that Oval Office says it is.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Crazy.
And then the Fed, by law, okay, so what happened was there was a point where the Treasury custodied like the gold.
Yeah.
And they, for no real apparent reason, so the Federal Reserve had gold. It was transferred to the ownership of that gold was the United States Treasury. And the Treasury issued these things, these gold certificates. And so these are terms that are in law, in bills that were written, that were passed by Congress, signed by the president. So this is all statutory. So these gold certificates, although, who's ever seen one of these gold certificates, or they actually exist. And there's a mechanical process where the Treasury issues new gold certificates. And this is actually in Senator Loomis's Bitcoin bill. This is how she wanted to pay for the strategic reserve, is this revaluation of gold. Where in the bill, it's required that the gold certificates be reissued. In the bill, it's stated that they should be reissued at a valuation of market price on whatever date the Treasury Secretary elects. But that's just, that's just the way it is. Yeah.
But you get any date. Picks any date.
Any date. Who knows? It could be a future expected date.
Right.
But there's no limitation that the bill language needs to be written at market price. That's the way it is in that bill. And so, the Treasury then submits these things. And then again, according to statute, the Federal Reserve must remit the difference between the old valuation and the new valuation to the Treasury within a specified time period. And so that's the way the law is written. It's a mechanical thing, and it's a way to get money into the Treasury's checking account, the Treasury General account. And this is what the dollar is, right? It's created out of thin air.
So to back up a little bit then, if the gold is not in Fort Knox, that gold would be the gold the Fed would be transferring to the Treasury, right? I assume.
There's no need for a transfer of the physical gold. The gold doesn't even need to be in Fort Knox. I mean,
at some point we got to verify that the gold exists, right? Does that not play into this equation?
Why would we need to do that? Why would we need to go in there and assay the gold and audit the gold? It's these gold certificates that are getting revalued. I mean,
it's so crazy. This makes no sense to me at all. It's just a total la-la land. You just make up whatever price you want. Doesn't even matter if the asset's even there.
Yes.
How is that possible? How does that not? Okay, that definitely breaks down at some point.
Yeah. Well, that's what.
How does that break down?
How does it break down? When countries like China and India start buying a lot of gold, which they have been buying futures contracts and saying they want physical settlement, they want the bars delivered, and the actual physical gold starts moving there because, see, you have this whole system that's set up. It's orchestrated by the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. You can go into BIS reports and it'll have so much information on their gold leasing activities. Yeah. Gold leasing, it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And the Bank of England holds this gold and the Fed holds this gold, and then they lease it out to their counterparties, places like the bullion banks, which are like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. They're the ones who go into the futures market and short it because if they have to, they feel they can physical deliver with this leased gold they have title to. Yeah. And so you have a whole hornet's nest. Now, Trump says he wants to audit Fort Knox, but I mean, how do you do like a true audit, right? You okay, you go there and there's a vault, and then there's a sheet on there and it says there's 2,800 bars in this vault. And you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, it looks like, are you going to have somebody actually X-ray those bars, make sure there's not tungsten inside? Are you going to have somebody check the social security number of every bar? is an audit going to be a quick tour around the vaults and it looks like it's all there, or is it going to be like a true audit, which would be to put those bars through what it takes for gold to be accepted by COMEX for delivery. So COMEX, the Gold Futures Exchange, will charge an amount if you want to put gold in the COMEX vault, and they'll do all that. They'll assay the purity, they'll check the security number, serial numbers, they'll make sure there's not lead or tungsten or something, in the core of those bars. So all of that, I don't know if that will really be done. And just to be clear, it's not all in Fort Knox. Supposedly a bunch of it is in the mint at West Point and Denver and different places. And according to the Federal Reserve, in their vaults, they hold each bar by serial number. They do not consider gold bars that are deposited to be fungible, which is at least is a good thing, but it says that on their website. So do all those, do all those security serial numbers actually match up? I doubt we'd ever see an audit at that scale. I think what we'd see is a photo op where Trump and Musk go down to Fort Knox and walk around in front of a bunch of bars and they say, it's all there. We can issue the new certificates.
But there's no, if I'm hearing you correctly, there's no substantive difference if it's there or not. If they go down there and do the photo op and say, hey, it's all gone, or hey, it's all here, that doesn't change anything other than public optics?
Well, it would need to be there to give legitimacy to the gold certificates. Like these gold certificates are allegedly revaluing this.
Right, but technically if you had one bar, they can mark that to whatever price they want it to be, right? Oh, it's $1 trillion gold bar.
Yeah,
whatever.
The $1 trillion coin. They've talked about that. Yeah. That's what they've talked about. So precisely.
So crazy.
And so
this is so clown world. This is so clown world.
This is it. This is the world we live in. Once the whole system broke down and we got rid of, any type of realistic monetary base, then it's only a matter of time before the argument goes to the logical conclusion. Yeah. Which is that it's make-believe land.
Absurdity. Yeah. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money. And be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.